What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon ADC, and today we're taking a look at the Fox Vulpis 4-in-1 multi-tool. This is a multi-tool in the form factor of a Swiss Army knife and available in several different colors and configurations. This one's going to be our 4-in-1 with the saw. There's also a 4-in-1 that replaces the saw with a pair of scissors. There's a single-bladed version, which is a little bit larger in overall length, at least. I think it's slimmer because obviously it only has one layer. There's a 3-in-1, which has the same tool set as a Victorinox Cadet, and then a 5-in-1, which has all of the tools you see here, plus an additional layer with a pair of scissors, so you get both the scissors and the saw. And so these are made by Fox Knives in Montiago, Italy, and the big selling point is that they use Bohler N690 for the steel. And I will say I really enjoyed this blade, really nice sheepsfoot blade on here, and it came very sharp, it holds this edge really nicely, easy to sharpen, nail nick deployment. The action on here is a little bit light overall. They are slip joints. They have a half stop, unlike a lot of the Victorinox counterparts, but it's just a really light pull, probably about a 2, if that, on the main blade. And it's a little bit inconsistent between tools as well. And so this one has kind of a lazy half stop. It's pretty easy to accidentally pass that half stop and barely notice it, where some of the other ones have really stout half stops. And I feel like on Victorinox knives, a lot of times you'll get a lot more consistent feel between the tools. They're usually really smooth, and these are very smooth, to be fair. Just a kind of light pull on here, lazy half stop, and also not very snappy. You can see it takes a while for that to catch and snap closed, and when it does, it's a little bit of a pathetic snap. Now that's just a preference thing. You can see it closes fully, that tip isn't exposed or anything like that, and so that's not an issue. Just the overall feel of it doesn't feel as good as a Victorinox in terms of the snappiness. And so otherwise really like this blade though, and that nail nick deployment. And every tool on here actually has a half stop, which is really nice. And we'll move on to our front layer over here with the bottle opener on the left, where cap lifter has a slotted screwdriver at the tip as well. This one has a really stout half stop, and I don't know if that was intentional. I do like that because it allows you to use this slotted screwdriver at this 90-degree angle without worrying about it really snapping shut. The Cadet, which is kind of my go-to keychain Swiss Army knife, doesn't have a half stop there, so you're really only using it in the fully open position, but this gives you the option to use it in either one and is really snappy overall. Now, flipping off to the right side of that same layer, so we're using the same layer here, we have the can opener and a smaller slotted screwdriver, not significantly smaller, but a little bit smaller. And this one has a really stout half stop, and it's almost too tight, so you can get past it easily enough. It feels a little bit gritty on the half to full open, where everything else has been very smooth when you open it. It does feel a little bit gritty, like it was over tightened just a hair. Now, has the slotted screwdriver, which is nice, and then the most aggressive can opener I've ever seen on one of these multi-tools. That comes very sharp, and so should be a good can opener, although I don't really use can openers on here. Usually when I'm opening cans, I'm at home, but that does have a really nice sharp can opener, and so just a little bit stout would be my only complaint there in terms of just it being over tightened. Now the last tool on this 4-in-1 is the saw. So if you got the scissor version, obviously this would be replaced. And in order to deploy that, all of the other tools had a nail nick. The saw you open from the end, like a lot of the other Victorinox saws. And so usually with those though, the tip is a little bit more exposed. With this one, I feel like they tucked it in too much, where you don't really have access to the tip at all, which is nice if you're just kind of running your finger over it. You can't accidentally open it, but if you don't have long enough nails, this can be very difficult to deploy, but it does have a light pull. It's not difficult to get out once you catch up on that end, and also has a half stop. These are probably a 2 also in terms of the pull, similar to that main blade. Both the can opener and the cap lifter were probably about a 3 to 3.5, so just a little bit heavier, but they were more stout in that half stop, and it did take more than what I would typically expect from a 3.5 pull to get out of the half stop, if that makes sense. But really aggressive teeth on this saw. Actually a really nice saw overall. Now it's a pretty small saw, so you're probably not going to be wanting to use it on branches thicker than your pinky or so, but it is a really nice saw, especially on a tool this size. Now, this is where my main gripe with this tool comes from, and you'll see it when I close it. I'll try and do it at this angle so you can see a little bit better, is that it is not centered and gets caught on the liner on the blade side every single time. Pretty easy to fix it. You just push it over a little bit and then push it in. but still an annoying thing, and I think an unexcusable quality control thing on an item that costs $60. And so if it were something that happened, 10-20% of the time, I would be able to excuse it because you would think that someone opened it and maybe it just didn't happen when they opened it. But this happens 100% of the time. I've tried bending it a little bit, just putting pressure on it while it's open. That didn't seem to help at all, and it's so snug in there that if you went too far, you would just get caught up on the opposite liner. And so just kind of an annoyance. And I didn't reach out to Fox, so that's partially my fault, but I bought this at Blade Show Atlanta at a discounted show price. They weren't 100% clear when they were releasing at the time. It ended up coming out pretty soon, but I didn't think they'd even have models to replace it because I bought the last one of this model at the show. And so I just kind of was resigned to the fact that I got kind of a crappy one. Maybe I can bend it back, and that hasn't been the case. And so just a bit of an annoyance, a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth overall. Now, I probably, if I were to buy it again, would wait and go with the scissor version. I wanted the scissor version initially. They were already sold out of that one at the show, so the 4-in-1 with the scissors. And I elected to go with this one because there was some show pricing. I think I paid around $40 for this, if I remember correctly. So it was a little bit cheaper than what the retail on them is. But I probably would have went with the scissors. And if I were buying another one, I'd probably just go with the single bladed version because I like the blade on it a lot. And I like how slim it is. It's a little bit bigger. The 3-in-1 is too comparable to the Cadet in that it has an exactly identical tool set, and I think I just like the form factor of the Cadet a little bit better. It's a little bit longer, so you have a larger blade, and it's also going to be slimmer. Now, hard to compare here because this one's 3 layers versus 2 layers, but you can see that those scales are a little bit thicker than the A-Lock scales on the Cadet series. And so in this closed position, we have a 2.92 inch long handle here. We weigh in at 1.7 ounces, so nice and lightweight. It does have a keychain, which they don't count as a separate tool. Victorinox usually lists that as a tool, but you can attach this to your keychain just like you would with that Cadet. And it's a pretty cool tool overall. Just kind of disappointed in that saw overall, but would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments below. If you have one of these, if you've had the same experience with the saw, it's entirely possible that's a one-off that only happened in my model, but I only have experience with one, and I have to assume that's what they're like across the board because I don't have experience with any other ones. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this one overall in the comments below. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting the notification button, or even consider joining the channel as a member. All help out the channel a ton, and as always, hope you have a great one. Take care.